Welcome back. And joining me now is former Biden Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Mr. Secretary, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here at the conclusion of an incredibly somber week. You heard the governor of Utah, Governor Cox, cast Charlie Kirk's assassination. He calls it a watershed moment. And he asked the question, quote, "Is this the end of a dark chapter in our history or the beginning of a darker chapter?" How would you answer that question, Mr. Secretary?
Well, I think it's the right question, and the answer is up to us. Look, first and foremost, a man has been murdered. His family is grieving. Charlie Kirk had children. This should not have happened to him, and this should never happen to anyone. And I think Governor Cox and a lot of other people around the country are asking the question, what does it take to make sure this never happens to anyone else? And by the way, it's not just visible public figures who have reason to fear from this season, this era of political violence. It's every American, because every American is harmed by this. It's an attack on an individual and an attack on a country whose entire purpose, entire way of being is that we can resolve what we need to resolve through a political process. But I think what happens next is up to leaders and up to ordinary Americans. Right now, the categories that matter in responding to this killing aren't left and right or MAGA and Democrats. I think the only category that really matters here is helping or hurting. Are we doing things that help America move from this moment to a better place, or divide America and make us worse off? And I'm encouraged that there are voices from the questions that Governor Cox has posed, who is a conservative Republican who I disagree with on most things, but is a good man, to all the way on the other end of the political spectrum, someone like Bernie Sanders, who put out a comparable message reminding Americans about why we always have to reject political violence.
And to that point, I mean, you heard Governor Cox refer to social media as a cancer. And the question, I think, becomes what to do about it. Do you agree with that assessment? Is social media actually a cancer right now, Mr. Secretary?
Social media is clearly part of the problem in a big way, and it speaks to something that's even bigger than the political polarization of this moment, although I think the internet has played a role. But it's more than that. It's what is it doing to our brains? Look, every time there's one of these killings in a summer that began with the assassination in June of a Democratic lawmaker by somebody with a kill list of Democrats, and is ending this September with the assassination of a conservative figure, and you go back through so many other cases, political and not of violence, there is not a consistent pattern of left versus right among the shooters, but there is a pattern where we see so many of these people are men, usually young men, who seem to spend more and more of their time in dark and twisted corners of the internet. And I think there is a sickness, not just the sickness of somebody who would pick up a gun and shoot someone, but I think a broader societal sickness that, frankly, I think you could see and feel in how many people around America, normal people, not dangerous people, were at a moment when we all should have still been praying for the victim and his family, were busy online praying for some shred of evidence that the shooter would turn out to be from the other political team. That is not healthy, and that is not a way forward, but that is exactly what the algorithm pushes us to do. And this does seem to be especially acute for young men. Young men right now, statistically, are the group most likely to spend most of their time alone. That is a prescription for a deeper societal level of pain and unraveling that we have got to turn around. We can't go on like this. And I think it's especially important to remember that some of the very same people who are in these conversations online will be perfectly normal offline. That's why we do need to just put down the phone, put down the computer, step out and talk to each other in environments where our humanity comes through.
Mr. Secretary, I do want to get your response to some of what we've heard from the president. This from the Oval Office just this week. Take a look.
My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country.
What is your reaction to hearing that?
I want to be really clear about this. This is an example of something that is hurting. We're not getting the leadership that we need to bring this country together from the White House. And in order to turn the tide of political violence, yes, we have to reject those who commit political violence. Yes, we have to reject those who celebrate or promote political violence. But also, in order to deprive political violence of its power, we have to reject anyone who would try to exploit political violence. The response to this cannot be for the government to crack down on individuals or groups, not because of violence, but because they challenge the government politically. We need to have free and open political debate and a healthy political process in this country. And by the way, just like an overwhelming majority of Americans reject violence, an overwhelming majority of Americans, left, right, and center, believe that the government should not be cracking down on its political opponents because they are political opponents, not in the United States of America, not ever.
Well, Mr. Secretary, I do want to shift gears here just a bit. I have to ask you about this new book, Vice President Kamala Harris. We are starting to see some excerpts. She writes about President Biden's decision to run for re-election, and she says this, quote, "It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that like a mantra, as if we'd all been hypnotized. Was it grace or was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness." You were in the president's cabinet, of course. Do you believe it was recklessness for President Biden's inner circle not to intervene sooner?
He should not have run. And if he had made that decision sooner, we might have been better off. But it literally was his decision. Nobody else was able to make that decision. And now in front of us, we're confronted with the decisions that come next, whether that's inside of a political party or movement, or as we're all weighing right now, in our own lives as Americans, as a country. And that's where we've got to focus.
Mr. Secretary, did you ever speak out and urge him not to run? And was it recklessness on behalf of the people who didn't do so?
I was not included in the process of deciding whether the president should run again. He made that decision, and I think I'm not alone in believing that he should have made the decision not to run sooner. But look, we are where we are as a country and as a party right now. And what matters now is how we build a different kind of future where people, I mean, not just politically, but nationally, where people can see themselves in what comes next.
All right. Secretary Buttigieg, thank you for joining us at the conclusion of a critical week. We really appreciate your perspective.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.